Welcome to the Rent to Rent Success podcast, all about creating consistent cash flow, escaping the 9-to-5, and really living life on your terms. This is the only podcast entirely dedicated to helping you achieve rent to rent success. It's our place to inspire each other to believe bigger, to be bolder, and to be game changers for good. I'm Nicky Taylor, your guide on this exciting ride. Let's start up the engines and get ready to fly. Hello. Stephanie here. Welcome to the 27th episode of the Rent to Rent Success podcast. Welcome. Come inside. How are you today? I hope you're well. Today we are talking about why rent to rent gets a bad rap. And before I go into that, I want to thank you for being here today. As I'm recording this, we've been making the podcast for 4 months, and we're just about to hit 10,000 downloads. It kind of blows my mind. 10,000 people all over the world here with me, and it's great that you're here, that you're listening, and that we're all interested in growing ethical property businesses without buying a single property to start off with. And I want to give a shout out to Aldershot Steve. Thanks so much, Steve, for your review. And Steve says, not only are the podcasts really informative to anyone interested in R2R, but they're also fun, easy listening, and with Stephanie having such an engaging voice, these are a must listen. So thank you, Steve. It means so much to us when you take the time to write a review. So thank you to all of you who have done this. If you haven't done this yet, it really is super helpful and helps more people find the podcast. So if you enjoy the podcast, please do leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. So let's get into today's topic. Why does rent to rent get a bad rap? You go into Facebook groups and people are there saying it's illegal, it's immoral, it's just plain wrong. And here's my take on it. I think it's because it's got such a low barrier to entry. So the exact same reasons why we love rent to rent are the reasons why it sometimes attracts the wrong people. It's because it's an incredibly efficient business model. Little money is required to start. You can be profitable within a few months, and most businesses, you're not profitable in the first year. You have consistent recurring cash flow. Most startups don't have that recurring revenue. You have the names and addresses of your perfect customers. Most businesses have to go out and find their customers. And I love the fact that at its very simplest, you're just renting a property, something that thousands of people are doing every day. But because of all those reasons and because of those low barriers to entry, sometimes attracts people who approach it from the mindset of, how can I make as much money as possible and deliver as little value as possible? Now, I don't think that people necessarily consciously think that, but I can see sometimes the way people approach it, the way they talk about it, this is not a passive investment strategy. Typically, when you're investing with a little bit of money, you're putting in more time. When you've got more money, often you're able to leverage other people's time. But when you're starting rent to rent, or you're using rent to rent, even if you've already got your own investment properties, you're using it because you don't need much money to start off with it. And you can make a high cash flow more sometimes than actually buying a property. So it's important to remember you do have to invest something. And it can change over time, because when you're first starting out and you take on a rent-to-rent property, it will take up some of your time. Now that we've been going for a while, when we take on a rent-to-rent property and we're in the process at the moment of taking on 3 properties, it's going to take only a little amount of my time because we've put those systems in place and we've employed staff. But at the beginning, when you're just starting out, you're going to put your time into it to make the money. So when I hear people say that, oh yeah, you can just outsource your rent to rent to an agent, you put no money in, you put no time in, you make money consistently, you have no hassle. Is it possible? Well, yeah, theoretically. But is it likely when you start out as a beginner that all that's going to happen? No, it isn't. Because why rent to rent works well, why it's so much more profitable for you rather than a traditional letting agent, is you are much more responsive than a letting agent who's got hundreds of properties. You look after your housemates. You can ensure that your void stays low. You're going to keep your properties well maintained. And you're going to do it in a few hours a month rather than working full-time 40 hours a week for 40 years. And what happens when you outsource to an agent is that often they're not going to be as diligent as you were at keeping the rooms full. And you're incentivized to keep the rooms full because you make more money. The better you keep things, the more money you make. Whereas a typical letting agent, they don't make a lot more money for keeping all the rooms full because they're only making, usually it's around 10% somewhere there. Have you ever had the feeling of wanting more? I have. Raw cashew nuts, cute dash hound photos, and Susie Q all do it for me. And you're listening here. You're loving it. Okay, I'm guessing here. You want to take things to the next level? Okay, I'm an optimist. Come over and see us at rent2rentsuccess.com. That's rentsuccess.com and get to see us in person. We've got a lot of juicy rent to rent goodness going on over there. Videos, blogs, free training and guides. I know you're going to love it. So check it out at rent2rentsuccess.com. So it's not as worth their while as it is worth your while to keep the rooms full. So what you'll find is that if you outsource to an agent, typically they're not going to be as diligent at keeping the rooms full. They're not going to be as responsive simply because they've got hundreds of properties to manage as well as yours. The property is not going to work as well. And you'll naturally find that the profitability of the property will go down. And that means that the likelihood is that there's not going to be enough profit for both you and the agent. That is the reality. And one of the things that's hugely important to my sister Nicky and I is an ethical approach. It's all about the intention. When your intention is to get as much as possible, deliver as little as possible, you're rarely going to win long term because somebody might work with you the first time, but they're not going to work with you the second time, the third time, the fourth time and more. So yes, you might get properties, but landlords are not likely to renew when you don't deliver what you promised. So our landlords want to renew after the term because we over-deliver. We always pay the rent that's due in full and on time. We keep the properties better than they thought. We communicate with them better than they thought. And we deliver an experience which is better than they thought. So when people go in, and this is why rent to rent gets a bad rap, and they go in with this focus on getting the money, and they don't focus enough on delivering a good service, then landlords won't want to renew. Tenants will want to leave. What you want is for everyone involved with your business to be delighted, not just satisfied, but delighted to be working with you. So that includes your team, your landlords, your housemates, your contractors, your cleaners, everyone touched by your business. When you run things this way, you get known and you get in demand. So our assistant property manager, Luke, does such a great job of this. The way that he works with the tenants, and he uses the systems that we set out, but because of the way that he does it, we've got over 65-star reviews on Google. And of course, we're not perfect. We're not perfect people. We're not a perfect business, but we do strive though every day to be the best that we can be and to deliver the best that we can. I've heard of 3 landlords recently who've been really badly let down by a rent-to-renter where the rent-to-renter just went off, no communication. They just decided they didn't want to do it anymore, or it just became too much for them. And I think that happens when you don't have a system, you don't know what to do, you let things get on top of you. When you've got a system, it's so much easier when you know how to run things. And there is a right way to run things where you just keep your train on the track and it gathers its own momentum. Running a good well-running properties is much easier than running badly because you know exactly what's going to happen. There's no chaos. Everything is set to plan, and anyone can do it within the business because everybody knows what to do. So if you're going to do rent to rent, and it is a great business model, do it right. Do it right. Deliver that exceptional value, get the exceptional results, and live life on your terms. And if you want to know more about it, you can download the free Rent to Rent guide and masterclass, rent2rentsuccess.com/guide. That's rent number 2, rentsuccess.com/guide. So that's why Rent to Rent has a bad rap. But there is another way to do it, the ethical way. And that's the way that we want to talk about. Let me know what your thoughts are. Have you had a bad experience with a rent to renter? Have you gotten out of your depth as a rent to renter? Let me know. I would love to know. But there are people doing it well, like we are, like many of our rent to rent rock stars are, and the people doing the Rent to Rent Kickstarter program. So that's it for this week. And if podcasts are not enough, you might know that we've got a book coming out. It just feels so special. We're spending a lot of time working on it to make it amazing. I'm really so excited. I can't wait for it to be shared with you, but we just want to make sure that it's absolutely top notch before we publish it. And we've got a very special VIP book list. We're going to be doing a special pre-launch offers, which is only going to be to the VIP book list and also to all our Rent to Rent Kickstarters. So if you haven't signed up yet, sign up, rent2rentbook.com. That's rent number 2 rentbook.com. There will be prizes and surprises only for these VIP list. So until next week, have an amazing rest of the week. And remember, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer. See you soon.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like the links for anything mentioned in today's episode, or if voice is not enough and you want to see us on video too, you can find all the show notes and lots more at rent2rentsuccess.com. That's rent number 2, rentsuccess.com. If you've enjoyed today's episode, we'd super appreciate it if you would take a few minutes to review it in your podcast app. Remember, we'll be donating to our B1G1 charities too for each review you give. Until then, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer.